Hello, everybody. I'm here again with someone we had on several months ago, actually, Seth Keshel, Captain K. And Seth has been out to an event that we put on with he and his lovely wife, Rachel, about election integrity. And that's that's his bailiwick, man. He knows the stuff. And Seth has just published a book. I got my copy just recently. And you'll notice who the foreword is done by, our buddy Newt Gingrich. Newt had a lot of cool things to say about you, Seth, and I know you've been to the White House a couple of times and briefed them on your findings and a lot of what you've done. I just want to mention two things that I came across here as I reading through my highlighted version of Seth's book, because I should not do this because I should just highlight everything. That's pretty close to everything, Seth, right there. But you know, the things that stood out to me just in this forward from Newt, his comment about how the integrity issue extends down to the precinct and county levels. I think we lose sight of that sometimes, especially when we have the kind of crazy stuff that's going on a national level. But he also commented about Seth with his encyclopedic command of the data. His unique process and understanding of complex data, and the fact that you've briefed the White House several times. So Seth, who is was in his past life a military intelligence officer and received the rank of captain before he left that part of his life and moved on to some other things which he's bringing to us now. So Seth, thank you for coming on again, my friend. I appreciate you. You know that, and you're a brother of mine, and I really look forward to what you have to share today.
It's great to be back on with you, Doug. I appreciate everything you're doing in what is often a thankless battle in the Philadelphia area.
That's for sure, brother. I'm telling you. We just had a couple locals on who were working on some of your work, who you know, Michelle Ergato and Dave Wright. And Dave, you know, has a background in economics, so they're doing a pretty good drill down on Montgomery County budget and where all that money's going, which is really difficult to find. But take it from here and just give us some idea what the heck's going on across this country and what people can do about it, because that's always one of the things we want to get out there, Seth, is how you can engage and what you can do.
Well, the most important 25-meter target, to use a military phrase right now, is the SAVE Act. So all pressure on the Senate. Just today, Senator Thune said that he thinks the Dems are going to nuke the filibuster. What that registered in my mind as is perhaps there's finally getting through that maybe we just need to nuke the filibuster. I don't really think it's necessarily a good thing, but my primary ideology is pragmatism. So it may not be what I want to hear. You know, I may not want to eat a Hershey bar and drink a soda pop in the desert, but if that's all I've got, I'm going to drink it and eat it. So I think that we need to square ourselves with reality, which is the next time they're in position to do so. I wish it were never going to happen, but it probably will. The Dems are going to nuke the filibuster, and they would have already done that under Biden if it had not been for Kyrsten Sinema fearing the voters of Arizona and Joe Manchin fearing the voters of West Virginia. And of course, the Dems ran them off anyway. So I think that we're going to have to adjust to the new normal of it's going to be majority rules in the Senate, depending on who pushes that first. I think that it's essential to get the Save America Act across because it's an 85-15 support issue. The measures in there are not so extreme that they're going to be opposed by everybody in the world with a valid opinion, because none of the opposition points to the Save America Act are valid, including Lisa Murkowski's. So that's the 25-meter target. The 300-meter target, the long-range target, remains the same. A lot of people are sitting around waiting for a miracle, or they're waiting for Trump to fix it himself, wave a magic wand over all the country's problems. When in reality, there's two ways to fix our country's issues. One of them is through violence. That is not what any patriot or Christian should advocate for or inflame. Okay, we, of course, talk about being ready to respond to crises. That's different. So that leaves us with the one way to fix our country, which we should approve of, is the political process. The problem with the political process is it's been corrupted by too much outside influence. It's also been corrupted by too much money, been corrupted by too many people that want to dictate for the people the interests that they have. So We don't have enough people doing the dirty work. The ladies you've mentioned, Rose, Michelle up there in Montgomery County, they do great work, but we don't have enough Republican precinct committeemen. We don't have enough people knocking doors. We don't have enough people registering voters and turning them out. And the system can work. It worked against Dan Crenshaw in Texas. So why is it that one district worth of Republicans can get it together and get something important done, but you have all these other districts that seem to be flapping in the wind, wanting someone else to do it?
Well, and this is the thing, Seth. We have engaged with some of the things that you've spoken about through STN, door knocking, organizing people, even local as well as our region here. And, it's challenging, especially right now, because it seems like, and I said this in our previous podcast, it seems like people are just, I don't even want to call it apathetic. It's almost like they're complacent. They're interested, but they don't know what to do, or they don't know how to do it. So, we need to give them the tools to engage. So, to your point with the SAVE Act, I agree. I don't want to see us nuke that filibuster, but by the same token, I know as soon as the opposition gets in, that's the first thing they're going to do, because they want to, if they do not have full control, they're going to want full control so they can impeach and impeach and impeach. And, this is where we're going. So as much as I hate to see it, just like yourself, I think it almost has to be done at some point if we can't get this thing across the goal line. But, on a local level, I know that you have done studies down to the nth degree on a local level, even, Seth. We've got a lot to do here in Pennsylvania and in our county, but counties surrounding us as well. How can we help people through what we're putting out here to get engaged? What's the number one thing that you think people should do on a local level, Seth?
Recruit precinct committeemen. That is the biggest shortage that we have, and all over Arizona. Pennsylvania clearly was instrumental in the 2020 election. In fact, that was the state, once it toppled over, the national election was called for Joe Biden. Pennsylvania also is the most important battleground state because it's got the most electoral votes of all battleground states. But in Arizona, I would consider Arizona the symbolic ground zero of the 2020 election, because that's where Maricopa County was, flipped for the first time since 1948, and Fox News called Arizona with a smidgen of the vote accounted for. That was a symbolic stoppage of Trump's momentum in the 2020 election. And then, of course, at the same time, the Midwest stopped counting votes. But in Maricopa County, ground zero, less than 50% of precincts have a precinct committee man. So,
Wow.
We listen to all this complaining online. Everybody's always on X whining and complaining. And then we don't have people volunteering for positions. Now, I'm not a precinct committee man. I've kind of got my hands full doing other things, though. So, if it's not going to be that, you've got to be involved doing something. We've got a lot of volunteers that are great, that aren't in leadership positions, but we don't have enough people doing the unglamorous work that makes the political operation successful. And when people want to complain about the Republican Party being stuffed full of rhinos, well, then you have to nominate candidates that can fundraise, which is a difficult thing in the grassroots. And a lot of conservatives don't want to give their money to candidates because they're afraid of what if. But if you don't, then you're not going to win, because all the special interests and the lobbying groups will prop up the establishment candidate that's going to vote the way that they want. So we have to be able to create a bench of candidates to run for local offices, school boards, county commissioner seats, city councils. So that begins with people getting involved doing mundane things. And it is, unfortunately, I know a lot of people don't like it, there are two options. You have Democrats and Republicans today. All these people that have these fancy dreams about libertarianism, where are the libertarian candidates for state house? Where are they for county commission? They don't have the bench, the funds, the infrastructure to run a competitive option. So it goes back to the drawing board, and it's not what people want to hear. When people want to talk about getting jacked, they wish they could go out and, rub some sort of Barry Bonds cream on them and become, a massive Olympian. But that takes diet, rest, extensive exercise, heavy lifting, and then people see that and they turn away. So when you realize that the political ship takes a long time to turn around and it doesn't have instant results everywhere you go, a lot of people jump off. Or when you have success, they think everything's good and they give up. That's what happened. In fact, the introduction to my book, it's called The Week the Laughter Stopped.
Yep.
And that details my experience being an outsider looking in on what the first Trump term was like. Trump got in there, bull in a china shop, and everybody laughed and made memes about the left. And the left spent 4 years figuring out how to rig the 2020 election.
Yeah, and the grunt work, as I call it, military terminology, people don't want to get dirty. They want to see the results. But unfortunately, a lot of those results come from the work that's done behind the scenes. The people that, as you said, are knocking on doors or talking to their neighbor or running for county commissioner or running for some of the precinct level jobs or duties. And, these are things that you're not getting remuneration for. You're just doing it out of the goodness of your heart for the right reason. And, that's tough sometimes, but, we have got to coalesce. We have to unite. I always say that we on our side are individualistic in what we do because we are entrepreneurs, many of us. We're free thinkers, and we don't always march in lockstep like the opposition does. They get the directive, and they all are like parrots, and they do what they're supposed to do in a robotic fashion. So, that's part of our issue, but we have to get rid of egos. We have to get rid of, I don't get any gratitude. I don't get any glory from this. Well, the glory is having the people that you're supporting win and using information like what Seth has provided to us, and what he has in his book, which I think is critical for us to be able to, understand what they've done, understand what's happened to our elections. Quite frankly, when I was a kid, everything is shut down on election day. You went to your local voting place, which was usually a school. You voted in the booth, pulled the levers, and it was tabulated at the end of the day. You knew who won. Now we got all this hanging Chad nonsense and all these, we got to count all the votes that didn't come in, and some of them were a day late, and we're still going to count them, and all this nonsense. So, Seth, that's a frustration for people too, okay? The way these elections are run in various states and communities. And what can they do about that? I mean, how can they become involved in the process to at least have oversight on what's happening?
Well, the legislature in the states, of course, crafts the laws that rig elections. In Pennsylvania's case, you have 2019 Act 77, which was shoved through by a Republican legislature working with Democrats. The result was no excuse mail-in voting in 7 weeks of it. So that was beginning in really the middle of September of an election year. This is where you get this big fat Democrat firewall where they get a margin so big that bad weather, any sort of issues on election day are going to cost Republicans elections. So influencing legislative candidates, number one, once a lot of that damage is done, it's going to be hard to repeal it. So now this puts a lot of burden on the federal government to come fix that. But that's one issue. I think as far as information operations go and shaping opinions, that it matters. 40% of the country thought the 2020 election was rigged at the time of the election. 40%. That's well over 60% now, according to Rasmussen reports. 62% I saw last week. The high was 66%. So more than 3 out of 5 Americans think that our elections suck. All right, and if we're in a red state, then I would imagine in Pennsylvania is probably more than 2/3. But you have that issue. But shaping the information space is an important process, and we ignore very low-hanging fruit that helps us make these arguments. So in Europe, 34 out of 47 countries ban mail-in voting. And the ones that do allow it, those 13 countries, usually have very narrow allowances for it, like overseas citizens voting. You're talking about a couple thousand in most of these countries. Then you have other big countries throughout the world, Mexico, Russia, Japan, Israel, ban mail-in voting. So why is it that blue states in this country are running full speed the opposite direction to make there be as much mail-in voting as possible if it's not to rig the elections? So if you read deep into the book, you can see how the FBI was spotting election fraud even in the Biden days. Now, they wouldn't go after Trump race, of course, but they were finding Democrat on Democrat fraud in New Jersey and Connecticut, mail-in ballots, bad registrations, and harvesting of ballots. So when you look through all of this stuff, you have to just take note of what's going on around the rest of the world, and it's just really not a matter up for debate. Most people think mail-in balloting is extremely corrupt.
I understand, as you said, some of these countries, bless you, some of these countries allow for absentee voting. Okay, I understand that. That's important for the military. That's important for people who work overseas. And we've always had that. But to have ballots counted 7 weeks prior to an election, I mean, you could have one of the candidates die in the meantime, and that's happened in the past, and they still get elected. So, I mean, that's the insanity of that is so much can shift and change in those 7 weeks that maybe I did vote for that guy, but now because of what he's done or what he said or I heard, I want to vote for this guy. You can't do it. At that point, you're kind of done. I mean, I guess you can, but it's a little bit of work, and most people will never do that. So, I mean, the SAVE Act is supported by how much? 85% of the population? And, still we have, and this was a comment I made this morning in another podcast we did, we have representatives because we have a representative government. They're working for us, and yet they flip it and make it seem like we're working for them. We are to a degree because our taxes are what support them. But, when we look at how things are structured, they're supposed to vote the way we want them to. So we got 80 to 85% of the constituents who want to have this SAVE Act passed. They want to have some type of ID for voting. And it can't just be, I want to make this clear too, and Seth, you might want to clarify this further. It can't just be a driver's license, because there have been millions of driver's licenses given out in New York, California, to individuals who are here illegally. So the driver's license isn't enough. They are not citizens of the United States. You've got to have something else to back that up, along with your picture ID. So this is the importance of the SAVE Act, and I can't overemphasize that. I don't know if you want to go beyond on that.
So, well, the SAVE Act addresses from this point forward, right? So preventing people from getting identification if they're not that would allow them to vote, people from not getting on the rolls because it's going to essentially force somebody to go register in person. There's not going to be any more of this automatic voter registration or the online voting scam. Now, there exists the problem of looking backward, people that are already on the rolls and not being able to get anybody off the rolls. That's going to require further solutions. I don't know if the president is waiting to see what happens with the SAVE Act, to see what kind of an executive order needs to be written, which of course will be challenged and held up in some leftist court, most likely. But if you can't figure out how to flush the voter rolls, now to make you feel better about things, I don't think illegals vote. I think they're being voted for. Now, not in any significant statistical numbers. I think that Ken Paxton finds some that vote here and there, but the big illegal votes are being put in by ballot harvesters, mail-in ballots, places like California. Harris trailed Joe Biden in her own home state by 1.8 million ballots. So yes, they definitely laid off the sauce in the 2024 election, but not enough to save some of these House seats that were counted until December when they got close. But we have to figure out a mechanism to flush out voter rolls. Me personally, I file a tax return every year. I have to register a vehicle every year. I'm not exactly sure why we can't expect the electorate once in their lifetime to have to go re-register with an ID to get back on the rolls. Just flush them out.
Absolutely. You, like I, have immigrant ancestors. They came here. They became citizens. My great-grandfather voted in every single election after he came here because he came from a country where it wasn't the same. We'll call it that. He felt honored to be able to do that, to be able to contribute. And I think everyone in this country should feel that way, because your vote makes a difference. There are elections where there are a difference of 8 votes. Obviously there's a recount there, but 8 votes. So your vote can make a difference. And I think it's important for us to emphasize that point as well. Seth, is there anything else you want to bring to us? Anything else from this document, which I promise you I will finish, that you feel everyone should know or learn about through reading your wonderful book on election corruption?
So the book is a merging of several different topics and disciplines. And I found this out the hard way in 2024. I went from being just a grassroots voice to getting pulled onto some shows like Sean Spicer or with Newt Gingrich, to where my analysis went all over. New York Times wrote it up. So I started to cross this bridge into being listened to by the mainstream. And if you can't impact that, you can't impact the middle of the body politic. It's very hard to get any of the change that we want. So I had to blend my own personal story of getting involved in this and how I came to be part of this movement, which included, credibility for analysis, but also blend it like a movie, flash forward, flash back, talking about working elections, and then put through 70,000 foot view, way above, what I would normally call the 30,000 foot view. I'm trying to make this play to everybody. The rank and file. I mean, there's a lot of sources in here, lots of citations. It's very difficult to challenge what I have to say. I left a lot of my more far-flung theories out, but this was written to blend the story of somebody that got involved doing what he does well, figuring out how to solve a major problem for the country. And honestly, like there's Molly Hemingway, she has rigged out there from years ago. But my book may wind up being something that's a preeminent source on preeminent source on election corruption in the Trump era, and it's got a lot of big endorsers behind it. It's available hardcover, paperback, ebook, and audiobook, narrated by yours truly. So if you get the book, I think you'd like it, and I think it'd teach you a lot and pass it on to somebody who needs to be properly educated.
Well, I think it's going to serve as a reference, honestly, Seth, for many people. And I think the way you've written it, from what I see and what I've heard, is you make it palatable regardless of where you are on the spectrum of understanding this. It's not like you got to be a rocket science analyst to be able to understand what's going on the way you're describing it. So I give you kudos for that and all your hard work, my friend. I do want to mention one thing for those of you who are local. On Saturday, May 9th, there's going to be a fundraising event for our local Montgomery County Republican Committee, Area 3. So the details of that event will come out shortly. But the important thing is Captain K is going to be there with a bunch of his books. But if you need to get one, that'll be a good place to do it. But I would recommend you get it in advance and take it along with you, because Captain K is going to be doing a book signing at that event as well. And we'll give you more detail on that as we get it, the time, etc. There'll be a number of local politicians and state politicians there, so you can get to meet them, speak with them, talk to them about your concerns, and be able to support them. Okay, these are people that are in the trenches every day. These are people that are fighting for you, and people who are like-minded to a great degree. So I hope you can get out for that. Seth, I'm going to be looking forward to seeing you there. It'll be good to see you again, brother, and break bread. And, I don't know if Rachel's going to be coming along with you, but if she isn't, you make sure you tell her I said hi. Any of these events you go to that you can pull her away from me.
I think she's going to be there. She makes me look a lot better.
Well, I'll tend to agree with that, buddy, but that's why we have them. So you take care of yourself. I love you, brother. I appreciate everything you're doing, and thank you. Thank you for being there.
Thank you for sticking out the fight, Doug. You guys are doing a great job.
We're going to keep doing it, too. I'll tell you that. We can't lay off, folks. We cannot back off. We have got to engage. We got to be part of the process. And as Seth said earlier, you got to support the people that are committed to doing what's right. And I've done it for many, many years. And I've supported some people financially and otherwise who have lost. But I supported them because they stood up, and they stood up for the right thing. So you got to do it. And it does, unfortunately, take finances, too. So, don't forget that part. Your time, your talent, and your monetary support is always important for anyone who's fighting on our side. So, Seth, safe travels. I know you're running all over the place, and you got to jump on us now because you got another event, I'm sure. And get the word out, man, because that book is going to go like skyrocketing through the bestsellers list and beyond.
All right, Doug. Well, thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, my friend. You take care and safe travels. Well, everybody, that's another one for us, and Seth did a great job, as he always does. This was a wonderful opportunity to hear about what he's doing, what he's done, and how you can learn more about the whole election corruption scam that's going on out there, and learn more about how you can mitigate some of that as well. So you guys take care, have a great day, and we'll look forward to bringing you more on our next podcast for STN. Safe travels, everybody. Bye-bye now. Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick moment to thank you for being part of the Shield of Truth Network community. For those of you who have been with us since we started, you've seen us evolve from our early monthly in-person meetings where we would gather together as a group, exchange ideas, and bring in speakers to educate on a variety of important topics. As the mission grew, we expanded well beyond the in-person meetings and have now evolved into virtual platforms, allowing STN to reach a much larger audience and connect with people far beyond our local community. If you are encouraged by the work STN is doing and believe in our mission, we invite you to support the Shield of Truth Network. Your support helps us to continue to educate, produce content, and reach more people with information that matters. You can use the link in the description or the QR code here on the screen, or visit Shield of Truth Network to donate. If you're not able to donate at this time, we certainly understand, but you can help in a powerful way. You can share this video with a friend or family member and post it to your social media. Also, if you enjoy our content, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new release. All of these actions help us to reach more people, expand our mission, and make a real impact. We are grateful for your support, as this mission would not be possible without you. And we look forward to what God has in store for our future. Thank you for being a part of the Shield of Truth Network's mission, and God bless you all.